Hi, I'm Phoebe Grover with Grover Mortgage Group.
And I'm Natalie Van Cardo with the Nat Nate Real Estate Team.
Welcome to our new podcast,
Real Estate of Mind,
where we discuss real estate, life, and everything in between.
We're excited for you to follow us and join in on our journey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Real Estate of Mind.
Welcome back. Today we are joined with Amanda Kirkland, who is going to chat to us about pivoting your careers and kind of giving us a little bit of background of like where she's been and how she got into the world of coaching. Welcome.
Nice to be here this morning. Our first snowy morning.
I
Made it all the way from Waterdown.
There you go.
You're in Waterdown as well?
Yeah. Is that
Where? We're both in Waterdown.
Oh, just behind Clapson's Corners.
Okay.
So
no
just off
way.
Hollybush.
Okay.
But brand new, I say, a year. So we moved last August.
Okay.
And I grew up in Midtown Toronto.
Oh, that's a big
Boyfriend
move.
was, grew up in Burlington, Oakville, so knew
Yeah.
the areas. But so it's huge, different, like talking about pivoting and careers that we're going to get into.
Yeah.
It kind of came as part of all of that, and it couldn't have been like more perfect. I love it.
Really?
I
That's good to
love it.
hear as someone who's like a new person, because I've been in Waterdown for over 25 years. So I'm just like, oh, Waterdown, whatever. But to hear from like a newcomer that you love it, that's
Well,
Yeah.
cool.
especially when everyone's like, Amanda, you're a city girl. Like, how did you end up? And I think it was things just aligned, and I kept sort of following signs.
Yeah.
And especially where I'm at in life right now, it's the right place to be.
It was
Yeah.
for you to like settle down.
It was settling down. It was being able to like meet a new supportive community. And,
Yeah.
we've got different chapters in our lives.
Mhm.
And the first one had a lot of bumps and a lot of lessons. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to apply all those now and kind of like rewrite
Yeah.
rewrite certain parts of life or do certain things differently. And I know one of the things we were going to talk about was like networking and support
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And that's one thing that this community, Burlington, Waterdown, Oakville, I've been doing a lot of in-person networking, which is something I've never done before.
Yeah.
I mean, for me to go to events on my own.
Scary.
We had Juanita on last week.
Yep.
And we're just talking about like how in-person networking is definitely back, but I found it's a little bit different. It's more personal. And what people don't realize, like Waterdown has that very small town feel,
Mhm.
but you're connected to like Burlington and a larger
Mhm.
community. But like it's
Yeah.
still like I go grocery shopping and I see somebody that I know all the time. It's just really nice.
Waterdown Wonder Woman is one of the first
Yeah.
group that I started going to. So I've made some really good connections. And when I went into sort of the official 1-year meeting that I walked in and I was like, I actually know everybody here by name. And I'm going to say 9 out of 12 had been out with and done a one-on-one.
Oh, that's
They're
huge.
so easy to talk to there, which is nice. Yeah.
They're different groups. I mean,
Mhm.
the Divas it's bigger.
Yeah.
It's not quite as like localized. So you don't
Mhm.
get to know everybody quite as well.
Yep.
But Waterdown, like I was at Watermark with one of the women I've met from Waterdown Wonder Woman the other day. And I walked in and she was talking to somebody and she introduced me, and then somebody else came in and they knew her, and somebody else came in and they knew her, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, and then someone taps me on the shoulder. I knew somebody.
Yeah. It's how it is there, which I enjoy.
I
Do you
gotta
have that
get.
happen to you?
I
No?
gotta get more into networking. No, I actually see more people in like Burlington than I know than in Waterdown, which is so
Really?
random because I've grown up in Waterdown. So,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Tell us a little bit about like how, like where you started and how you kind of got into the world of coaching.
I was in real estate development for close to 3 decades, which somebody said I shouldn't use that anymore because I'm aging myself. Anyway, it is what
No,
it
it
is.
shows your experience.
Pretty much not right after university, but close to after I graduated. I ended up with working for the Greater Toronto Home Builders Association, which is Build now. That kind of started me into real estate, the real world of real estate. So I worked for a condo developer. I worked for what Smart Center's now, First Pro, a couple of other builders, and then I went agency side. And then I approached one of the clients I was working on who didn't have an in-house marketing person and was going to hire one that I was then going to have to report to. And I was like, no, like, I really like this project. Like, I want to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
So I created a role for myself with that builder. And up until 3 years ago, I was working on Liberty Village in downtown Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So the builder I worked for, we did about 3,000 condos and
Wow.
500 stacked townhouses.
Mm.
So I started there in a sales and marketing role and ended up sort of VP overseeing everything. So I dealt with all the brokers. I signed the APSs, dealt with the interior designers, the architects. We were
So
a
literally
small,
everything.
small team.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to go to a bigger builder, there would be a lot of different levels.
Yes, I worked with bigger builders. So yes, I know
So yeah.
how it works.
Anyway, that was the only project on the books for the builder, and I knew it was coming to an end. I'm like, uh-oh, like what next in
Mhm.
my early 50s? So I, started doing some research and looking into staying in the industry, and I was going to be taking steps backwards. I'd really built a good job there, isolated myself a little bit, working for such a long time with the same people, but I mean, I loved what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I started looking into what do I really like doing and what am I good at doing, and can I come up with something on my own? I mean, I build as a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
I did do other contract jobs. I would never say that I was a solopreneur, but anyway, I had a concept of personal concierge because I was good at getting things done, organizing, doing mini demolitions, renovations that I'd done on my own personal properties.
Yeah.
Started working with a coach on that concept, and I didn't realize that there was all sorts of personal development work and what's your purpose. And
Yeah.
there was one day, and it was early on in the pandemic, and I remember sitting in my old place in Etobicoke, and she wanted to know, a purpose, and I was like, this was 2.5 hours of kind of tears going, I
Mhm.
don't have a bleeping purpose. Like, to me, it was kind of almost a spiritual or religious. I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I suddenly went, I just want to be happy and I want people to be happy.
Mhm.
And something just like clicked. Started doing work on myself, did training with Avalon Empowerment. So we do a lot of work with the unconscious mind,
Very cool.
Mm.
releasing negative beliefs, forgiveness.
I
work.
love that.
Yeah, I'm all about
We need that. Yeah.
And, did all the work that
Yeah.
I asked my clients to do. And it also helped me put the puzzle of my life together,
Mhm.
where I had so many struggles, whether it was as Amanda or as a female in the workplace.
Mhm.
And I'll stop there and let you.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So you were working with a coach at that time? Or were you training to be a coach?
I was training to be a coach.
Okay.
But
nice.
in those modalities and
Mhm.
whatnot. So I'm a certified master trauma aware practitioner and evolved NLP.
Wow.
Very cool.
And there's a bunch of other terms. That
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing this?
4 years.
Okay.
Nice.
And you love it?
I do.
Yeah. You feel like you found your purpose?
I had what was that? A human design reading done yesterday with a coach I'm working with.
What is that?
It basically takes like your date, time, place of birth, like down to the minute,
Mm.
and it's a blueprint of what you're put on the earth to do.
I want to do
I want to
this.
do that. Should we do it right now?
I want to do this.
Oh, wait, but you don't give it? Somebody else gave it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a coach I'm working with as part of her package did it. And
That's so cool.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And there's gates and bridges and
Mhm.
symbols and signs, but some of the things were like spot on.
Spot on.
They almost come up with like I'm going to say like an archetype.
Mm-hmm.
But it's broken down. It was actually really fascinating.
So I have this birthday book and we've had it for like
I've heard about this
so
birthday
long.
book.
No, it's not just one book for me. It's like all the days of the year in it.
Yeah.
And my day is like exact. And usually everybody that reads it, like they're very close to what their birthday is. So I can imagine how more deep it would go if you go by the hour, the whatever.
Well, there were things like 88 days before you're born, your soul enters your body.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine yesterday, when I was telling her about it, she's
That's
like,
so
88
interesting.
symbolizes the infinity. So that's
Yeah.
why they use.
Mm.
Anyway,
I
bizarre
love this
stuff.
kind of stuff. I love this kind of stuff.
I never thought I'd be into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it, like, in the coaching and, you know, when I'm working with my clients, it's not, someone comes to you with a problem and it's so much more than that.
Yep.
There's peeling back layers, and
Yeah.
it's not just the person or the situation you're having a problem with. Like, we are, and I mean, I know now, I played a role in a lot of the dysfunction that went on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Some places I may have been able to fix things a little bit.
Yeah.
Others,
You can't. Yeah.
people, you know, some people want to work on themselves. Some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are kind of into and interested in this, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are like,
A lot of people that are avoidant, right? They don't want to
I
do the
know.
work.
No,
It's
well, that or they don't
uncomfortable.
believe it. That's the other thing. But like, I'm a very strong believer. Like, you're not your like you make your situation, and even if you think it's not your fault, there's something you can do to improve it in some sort of way. So why not figure that out? Yeah. So I love.
Do you
that.
guys believe in destiny?
I believe in the universe.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a better answer.
I didn't believe in anything up until 4 years ago. Like, nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just started leaving, like, it was like the dog I was telling you when we first sat down, like, there were breadcrumbs, there were hints,
Mm-hmm.
and I started following them. And that wasn't me a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And I still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So for dogs, I have similar stories. So years ago, I was looking for a dog, and I had a dream of me in this space. I walked in, I felt everything, and then that day, my friend said, at this point I've checked like every pet store, because that's back when dogs were being sold at pet stores. He's like, I found one we haven't looked at. Like, let's go. So he took me there, and as soon as I walked in, I said, "Oh my God, this is from my dream." Like, literally the whole thing. So like, I walked, and then that dog that I had, he literally picked me because I looked in. And he just looked at me. He's like, "Yeah, like we're
Is this your
good."
current dog you have now?
No, he passed away.
Oh,
But yeah,
no.
so it was like that to me is destiny. And then even with Roman,
Mhm.
so I have a little puppy, and this whole time she's white, and the whole time in my head, I'm like, I think like we're gonna get a black dog. This like black dog just kept coming in my head, and then we found Roman online, and then my husband went and grabbed him. So it's just like weird things that kind of pull you into directions.
Both my first two dogs, I had an Aussie Shepherd Blue Heeler, and then the Yorkie I was telling you about, both came from PJ's when they were selling dogs.
Yeah.
So I always said I rescued them because people
Yeah,
were like, "You
it's
got a dog
true.
from a pet store?"
It's still to me is a rescue. Yeah.
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 One of the things, the human design thing reading yesterday, which I just caught myself about to do, is one of the things that I can't remember what she called me, the type was,
Mhm.
is I need to wait to speak or to ask to speak, or I need to ask permission because I tend to like jump in.
That's me.
and
I'm literally doing that right now. I can't stop myself. I'm like, I have to talk right now.
I'm trying to teach my kids it, but then I'm also realizing I do that all the time.
Yeah, I do it too. I'm just like, my mom is always like, listen before you speak. And I'm like, I try, but then I'm like, I have so many things that are going on in my head at all times. I'm like, I need to get this information out.
So it's like, you know,
Put your
one
hand
of
up,
the
yeah.
terms I've learned is, well, when we're doing this sort of thing, we're trying to teach ourselves, wait, why am I talking?
Wow.
Just to sort of like
Hear
prompt
yourself speak. Yeah.
So much of it is just about being aware of some of our behaviors. And I mean, it's tiring because I know at home, you know, and even on the phone with my sister sometimes, it's like, I don't want my girlfriend. I want my girlfriend or my sister Amanda. I don't want Coach Amanda. But once you started doing that work, I'm looking at everything through different lenses and healthier lenses.
Yeah.
And more compassionate lenses, I guess, when it comes to dealing with difficult people, because that's sort of my line of, you know, work or clients. They struggle with, you know, dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships. They're trying to change things. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can't change other people. You can only change how you are looking at the situation or responding to it. But it's funny because I'm getting Facebook posts coming back from 7-8 years ago. with stuff about not telling, like me posting about not being able to change other people. That's all I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it, but I'm posting
Yeah.
and now I'm coaching.
It's also very like relieving once you kind of understand that part of like, this is just who they are. If they want to change, they can. And you may have to change how you interact with that person. But at the end of the day, like, it's not your issue.
And you need to like,
It's like, that's them.
yeah, something
good.
I'm learning recently is like detachment and how to just like let go of certain situations and that like you can't control everything. Cause like I'm such a type A that I feel the need to control everything. And other human beings is not something you can control. And I'm
Well,
learning that.
It's not Brene Brown. It's, Mel Robbins.
Mel Robbins, the let go theory.
Or the
Let go.
Excuse me, the let
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Like let them be, let them do. It's easier said than done.
Yeah. I was listening to that recently and it's really interesting. I feel like if someone can master that, their life will change. So what's the difference between a coach and a therapist? Because I feel like you do similar.
Well, I mean, I've done traditional armchair therapy. I did it years ago. Not bashing it. I mean, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not like licensed in that sense. So the work I do is through training, lived experience, research. Traditional armchair therapy, I'm only going to speak in my experience. It got me through like every week. Like I'd go in and I was having trouble at home or I was having trouble at work or with friends and I had someone that I could go and speak to. And this was a psychiatrist versus psychologists. And I don't know the exact definition of everyone right now. And they change. I think psychologists now are doing a lot more of the type of work like I'm doing.
Yeah, like cognitive behavioral
therapy. Yeah. Coaching is, like I said, there's an end goal. There's accountability. There's somebody by your side while holding you accountable and sort of pushing you in places you don't want to be pushed. The work I do delves really deep into, family of origin, past experiences, like how they've built you, what you're holding on to, limiting beliefs. Forgiveness work, like I'd mentioned earlier. And I work with my clients, typically one-on-one. It'll be like a 6-week breakthrough, and it could be a relationship breakthrough, or it could be like anything that they're coming in. And
do they come with like a specific goal? Like, hey, I want to get in a better relationship, or I want to create my own company. And then it's for you to kind of help navigate that with them?
Yeah. I mean, they'll come in with something, but I normally do like a 30-minute, like get to know you, like let's chat where you're at right now. What do you want to change in your life? And then I do like a 2-3 hour like intake where we get to the bottom of that, because when they come in with something, we may find that there's something else or why they want to be there, or why they want this goal in mind at the end of the day.
And this is what I find most interesting about this kind of work is like, even when I go into therapy to see my therapist, like I'll be driving there and I'll be like, oh, I want to talk to her about this. But then I get there and then I often start talking about something completely different, because that's just like where my emotions are taking me. So it's interesting that you say that they come in with one thing, but then you actually uncover other things or more things about why they're there, and then you can help them get there, right?
Yeah, and one of the other things is too, it's not, I mean, I know with a therapist, I went and I told stories.
Yeah.
And I downloaded. Yeah. That's not what I do in my coaching. It's a lot more focused. And like I said, we do a quantum change process 1 week, and which is that's some of the forgiveness work I was talking about. And that's a 2-3 hour session, and it's not reliving any past events. So you're not re-traumatizing somebody if they've been traumatized. It's hard to sort of blurt bits and pieces out of what I do, but it's all individualized based on what someone's goals are and what their past experiences have been.
What I find interesting is like what you're saying, where someone comes in with a certain goal, but everything really comes back down to like how you're wired and why you got to this point right now and how to kind of break through. You kind of have to go back a little bit and retrain.
Yep.
And like, so I just find it very interesting.
I mean, all sorts of schools of thought, but I'm like, I wanted to be who I was before all the shit happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, there's believers and non-believers. I believe we intrinsically have the right to be happy, feel heard,
Mm-hmm.
be supported, get support and validation. There's,
Yeah.
there's people that you don't need external validation. Okay. You know what? I once in a while, like I can give it to myself. I can look and go like, where were you? Where are you today? You may not be where you want to be, but look at all the new accomplishments you have. But it's still validating, being invited onto a podcast or
Yeah.
someone that you meet out at a network event reaches out before you do.
Yeah.
And
We're social beings, so I think it's by nature we kind of need to be validated by other people.
And I feel like it's normal, right? I feel like people look down on it, but I think it's normal.
In variation, like you don't want that to be your sole purpose. Like you're doing things to
not
get
excessive,
noticed, but
yeah.
I think we.
I mean, who doesn't like a little bit of recognition here and there, right?
Yeah.
well,
that doesn't mean you have less self-love for yourself, I think.
No, you're right. And I mean, when I was in the corporate world, I remember creating a broker event and redoing the whole sales office and the model suites. And it was another Facebook memory that came up. I think it was 11 years ago or 9 years ago. It was our last tower. And I was like so proud of all of it. And the builder hadn't seen it and one of the other senior staff. And I was like, so like,
what do you think?
were you happy with it? Basically, it's what you're paid to do.
Yeah.
That was, and I've never forgotten it. And
Yeah.
Bygones be bygones, but it hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like pouring your soul into it. You want your employer to be like, wow, this is great.
And I did for a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I probably, we all sometimes take too much personal interest. And at the end of the day, years later, it's like, okay, bye, see ya.
Yeah.
In tons of instances.
You're just a number at the end of the day, yeah.
So
Totally.
what advice would you give to someone who is looking to pivot their career? And what advice would you give, like if you're starting later in life? Because someone that's, to me, is pivoting, has done their current job for so long, and now they're saying, I'm either uninterested or kind of just, I'm bored.
Well, I mean, I did the exercise of what am I good at? What am I passionate about? I guess then finding out, like, do you have a purpose? Like, is there, and I mean, mine started with the word, being happy. And then the other part was authenticity. I have a tagline when I'm signing things off, and it's babe. And it used to be balanced, authentic, bitch extraordinaire. And everyone thought it was great. And one day I changed it to balanced, authentic, babe extraordinaire. And people were like, why did you change it? And I'm like, because it wasn't resonating with me anymore. That's how I'm going to say people saw me, like tougher,
right?
You're like fighter, so to speak. And anyway, so I think part of it is if you're going to pivot or change directions, I mean, take the skills, what you're good at, what you love, and start there. And I've recently launched a side mobile spray tanning business.
Oh.
That is called Empower Mobile Tan, and I'm kind of positioning it in terms of helping women shine inside and out.
Amazing.
You always feel better with a tan. Sorry, that's true.
It's so true. I feel as soon as I'm in the sun and I get a tan, I like get my personality back.
Yeah.
100%. I'm like a whole new different person.
You asked another question. I can't remember what the second one was.
We can do this one because I like it. It says, how can people overcome the fear of starting over and stepping into the unknown? Because
that's scary.
That stops
and
a lot
that
of
can
people.
be in any area of life, right? That can be in a career, that can be in a relationship, that can be in anything.
You don't have to do it all right away. So I'm in the position where my job ended. So you had to
find something else.
I had to figure out something, but I mean, starting with 0 paychecks and whatnot. So, I mean, the first piece of advice is don't quit your old job or your day job right away.
Totally.
There's quite a few people I know that are doing 2 things, 3 things until they get their, I'm going to say, solopreneur career off. I think being around like-minded, like the networking and the support groups, I found, really encouraging. Change is scary,
Yeah.
but it also symbolizes like progress and
And rebirth. I always think like rebirth.
And how do you know? Like, what are some signs that someone is ready to change their situation? How do you know that you're making the right decision? Because it can be scary for a lot of people. Like you said, change is scary, right?
change is scary.
So, how do you know you're making the right decision?
I think you have to go with your gut.
Leap of faith, right?
Part of it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all have, imposter, not we all, but I mean, imposter syndrome. And there's days I'm like, I remember with the first coach I started working with, a lot of her clients, she was training them to be coaches. And she kind of started pushing me that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually went from being a personal concierge to I was going to work with busy business people
Mhm.
who used busy as a badge and used that sort of mindset to try turn things around. But I was like, who am I to be a coach? Who am I? I just
Yeah.
know that the stuff I've learned in the last number of years and that I practice now, if I knew any of that, it would have made such a difference in my life and relationships and situations.
Mhm.
Some I would have walked away with even faster.
Yeah.
Some I may not have challenged some people as much as I did because I could have looked at them more, with more empathy or
Yeah.
understanding of where they came from. And I digress from that question again in terms of like leap of faith and going with your
Yeah.
gut
With your gut.
and having supportive,
Having a
Mhm.
support
around you.
system. That's a huge thing.
And I want to add, like, a lot of people think that if they're switching, they feel like they failed at something. And I think we need to kind of reframe that because you're not really failing if it's not serving you. Like, just like that tagline that you had, it's not serving in you anymore. So I'm going to just change it to make it more something that's suitable to who I am today.
Yeah.
So I think we need to normalize that a lot more.
And also failure, another thing is like, reframing it. Like failure can also be beautiful because it means you tried something, then you realized it wasn't for you, and now you're trying something else.
Well,
Like it's a beautiful
one of the
thing.
other terms I use is it's not a mistake, it's a missed take.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my God,
We're
yeah.
learning lessons, and it's the failures too. Like
Mhm.
there is a lesson in there.
Absolutely.
There's always a lesson. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other, it's a fable that I remember my coaches used to bring up a lot, and it was called 3 Feet from Gold. So,
Oh, God.
you know that one?
I do.
So when you're, whether it's, I mean, because I'm like that right now. I'm like, I feel like I'm 3 feet from gold. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit on here and say, I've got, a waiting list of clients.
Mhm.
It's hard, and it's also hard work working on yourself. But
Mhm.
it's, about this gold miner who was 3 feet from the richest vein of gold, and he basically gave up.
You just have to keep going. Oh,
You
okay.
need to sort of keep going, and when you're hitting the barriers, like sometimes all it takes is like one tweak or one meeting one new person or
Yeah.
or one referral when you guys started in real estate that takes you to the next one, that takes you to the next one, that
Yeah.
takes you to the next one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not easy, and I mean, you've got to dig into savings and eat some humble pie. And
Yeah.
like I said, I made a lot of changes in my life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm happier.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for at the end of the day, right? Because all the money in the world doesn't amount to anything if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some strategies to build authentic and meaningful connections in business?
It's not about, at the networking events, it's not
Yeah.
just about swapping business cards.
Yes.
It's like I said when we were talking earlier about like listening, not to answer. So asking questions. I know one of the things that they say when you go to the networking events is, you can start by asking somebody why they're there.
Yeah.
Just to open up and have interest in somebody else. Try follow up and make at least one-on-one call. It can be a Zoom. I've got a second one with somebody the other day, and she calls it a Zoffy.
So what's a
It's a
Zoffy?
Zoom coffee.
Ah.
I'd never heard that. I thought
Yeah.
that was kinda cute.
It is.
People are just so creative these days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like taking interest more so than just kind of what you personally are benefiting from this.
And then, if you've got someone that you look up to and admire, reach out to them and ask for their advice and support. And I guess the other thing that one of the things I've learned is sometimes you think like-minded are going to be like the best support, but I'm learning that it doesn't matter what somebody does. You're getting to know somebody. They're getting to know your name. You're building your like, know, trust. So whether it's the coaching or the tanning, I've met someone that's a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
I'm running into someone that is a mediator who's working with clients who are going to need a mortgage. So I know her, I can connect her to her. They can connect me to somebody, and we're not in remotely the same
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
business.
circle.
So that's the other.
They always say, right, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah. At networking events, I always find I'm drawn to the person or people who have like completely different jobs than I have. Or like someone like, how did you even get into that? Like that is just, I'm interested in what people do.
Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
when I saw that you were real estate, but you
Yeah.
were there, I was like, is there a way I can, like, because I love doing podcasts.
Yeah.
And is there a way I can, approach it so that, because I know I'm not like all the guests you have on.
We've like, so we're more of like we do talk about real estate. We talk about being business owners because at the end of the day, that's what we are. And then we're doing a lot of lifestyle because lifestyle does fit into how we show up at work and like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, who we are. So yeah. So
And like all of
kind
us
of
is
all-
important. Yeah, it ties in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked that, there's a lot of people that are like, why did you leave all that like behind you? All that experience. And I mean, I have an idea. There's, there's development going on in Waterdown. And I'm going to poke around and see if there's some way I could get into some kind of like consulting role, because what's going on there is basically what I spent 20 years doing.
Yeah.
And like, but I don't want to give up. I'm going to say I don't want to give up my purpose and my passion right now, because there's a reason I went from there to like
To
this
Waterdown,
and
yeah.
ended up in Waterdown and meeting the people I have and getting into the coaching. Like it's not for the faint of heart.
I find like you hear a lot of similar stories of people like we're in, I'm going to just say like corporate America, and then they kind of leave and they venture off doing something either completely different or something that kind of brings them more joy and peace, because it's not
Bring
easy.
more joy and peace. I listen to, friends, family, things in the corporate world. And I mean, I'm sure there's some places fine, but I'm like, I don't want to go back to that.
No, I worked for
It's not
builders
easy,
and I
yeah.
enjoyed it, but anything higher than what I did, I'm like, it had no appeal to me. None. Like I didn't want to be in the office. I wanted the freedom of being like on site, talking to people, not in the office space at all.
And just not, and it's just like kind of like being your own boss, right? Not having somebody that you have to be like, you have to report to, I think is the biggest thing for me.
And at the end of the day, as long as I got my work done, I mean, when I was working at the ad agency before, it was the same. I had a lot of autonomy and to all of a sudden not be able to like go to a yoga class I want to, or whip out with the dog, or go meet someone for a quick coffee, or go to a networking event. And I'm like, so kind of want, can you have the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've now been self-employed for 8 years, and it's really hard for me to imagine not being self-employed anymore, because giving up, like you said, giving up your autonomy,
Freedom,
like
in a
it makes me so anxious. Like I just,
Well, I had an interview recently because I still look for, part-time, like what's out there. And it actually was working for a builder in the sales capacity. And their office is open 7 days a week, 11 till 6. So it would be 3 days and weekends. And I was like,
no, that's
how
crazy.
do
How do you do anything you want to do? Yeah.
No. And it was, I mean, would it have been nice money at the end of the day? Sure. But
it's like at what cost?
well,
Yeah.
and that was the other thing that came into play when I've thought about some of these. I've never had a job where I couldn't wear jeans to work. And I couldn't imagine at my age now, somebody telling me you can't wear jeans, or you can't wear a pair of leggings and a white dress shirt, or a...
Yeah. I didn't even think of that
It's like the small things, right? Like people listening to this are probably like, oh my gosh, these people have it so good. They're complaining about the smallest things. But it's like once you get to that space, it becomes huge, because it becomes your thing and like your peace of mind and this is how you live your life kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it seems so small, but it's so big at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm lucky to be in the position
Totally. I say, yeah,
to
like I'm
do all
so
this.
grateful. I am
don't-
so grateful. And I try not taking it for granted, but yeah, it's just interesting.
But there's a lot of risk that we take
There's a lot
on
of
with
risk,
that,
yeah.
which I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah. Like we
Mhm.
don't have like we're commissioned
Mhm.
is you're a freelancer, right? Like you're contracted. So are we. We don't have a base salary. We don't get a bi-weekly paycheck. But because of that, we can have our peace of mind. We can have our autonomy and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
Peace of mind for other people would be having that check though too.
Well, fair enough. Yeah. There's
You
different
know?
there's
Yeah.
different personalities, of course, at the end of the day. Like I talk about it with my brothers all the time because they're, employed and they've been employed for 20 plus years. And they're just like, the way you live your life and the way we live our lives is so different because
Mhm.
they're like 9 to 5, have a routine. I'm not. I go to Pilates at like 10 a.m. if I want, as long as I get my work done and I
Mhm.
do my things. But it's like, I can't do that. Like I don't know.
Well, and I was lucky because that's kind of how I had my jobs in the corporate world.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't have to be
So it wasn't like rigid structure.
No, I could go to when I was in Liberty Village. I went to lunchtime yoga
Mhm.
or like 4:30, and if I had something to finish, I'd scoot back into the office. I lived there too, so it was
Yeah.
everything was like. But if I wanted to pop out and go for a lunch, I'd go for a lunch, and
So you
as
had like the
long as-
best of both
I had
worlds,
the
kind
best
of.
both worlds.
Yeah.
And I created that, and got them to trust me, so to speak, to do all that.
Mhm.
But it was the best of both worlds. So
Mhm.
to have to go, in this day and age, the remote, I think, even after COVID and people working from home, is kind of like, okay, we can't stop people going to the office, but maybe there is a happy median. And
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, if you can trust that the same amount of work is being done, then people can like kind of have that freedom. Or, like we're adults. If you are
Mhm.
able to go do that and still meet your deadlines, then go do it.
yeah, exactly.
And this is why I don't understand the mandate to come back to work like 4 to 5 times a day by all these big corporations. Cause it's like, if COVID has taught you anything, it's like that you can get your work done at home. But I guess
Yes
they need
and
to
no.
justify
Okay,
their
so, like,
Well, you
leases,
got
right?
kids, right?
I have kids. Yes.
So you must have, well, I guess you may not have been in the same situation, but I remember having staff during COVID with the kids at home, and they were like, at first they were like, oh, sorry. I'm like, it's part of it now.
Yeah.
The kids,
yeah.
the dogs.
It's all part
Exactly.
of it.
No, but like with an example of Nathan's business, if they're like they physically have to be there because it's
Well, that's
it's different. It's intense
That's
labor.
different. Yeah.
But if he's not physically there, or if I'm not physically there, then no work gets done. So like there's a lot of babysitting that has to kind of be done with certain types of industry. So I kind of get why some companies want people back.
yeah.
But my thing is like, even when we're dealing with his employees, I'm like, can we all we're adults. When we're not here, you know what you're supposed to be
You
doing.
just do it. Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. Well,
It's
that's
not that
unfortunate.
But that's why it's like all different things you have to be considered. But for me, yes, I need the freedom to kind of
to kind of
go do what I want.
Yeah,
when
like
I
a
want.
hybrid work situation is like
Yeah.
perfect. Like going when you want or you don't have to go in. But yeah.
Mhm.
I have a question for you. So you're a life coach or personal growth coach, or what do you call yourself?
I was using personal growth coach, but I think I'm
Okay.
steering more to life because I think that's what, when people are looking for something,
Yeah.
it's
a life coach?
It's a life coach. But when you're, when you're doing all your training, they want you to narrow down the ideal client and your title and all of that stuff. But it is more life. I mean,
Life,
it's life. It's growing. It is personal growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you pivoted to your new career path, do you now feel that it has helped you with your relationships, like whether that's romantic or friendships or
Oh yeah,
family
100%.
relationships?
And
Yeah.
it's actually made people gravitate towards me,
Wow.
That's interesting.
which is something like, and in particular women. Because I was actually in the business I was in, I was dealing with mostly males. There were some women that came in. I got really triggered by a lot of them because, for whatever reason, without getting into
Yeah.
analyzing all of it, I was told, I had the reputation that Amanda can't work well with women.
Okay. I want to just debunk that right now. I find it's just, I'm one of those girls that just naturally find it easier to talk to men because I have more in common with them. I'm not the typical girl.
We talk about this all the time.
Yeah. So for me, I naturally gravitate toward men because I know I can have an easier conversation. So I get that.
And I, in my defense, I was like, there's a lot of women I work really well with.
Yeah.
But they were a certain type, and the ones I didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, now it's interesting because I'm attracting different things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, attracting a move, attracting a relationship, attracting, different women, men, reach outs.
Do you think the switch, so it was what type of switch do you think happened in order for that to happen?
Yeah.
Me getting out of a lot of toxic, dysfunctional relationships, like energy, and being around much more positive energy, trying to, I catch myself once in a while still sort of complaining about stupid things or something that's happened. And I'm like, I don't want to go back to the old me, because the old me, it was, complaining about work, complaining about family, and it wasn't great stuff going on. Like I had legitimate, but I don't want to be there. I just feel, since I've made all the changes and cut a lot of ties and looked at things in a new way, I just feel lighter. And, that in anyone just attracts more.
It's it's that basis of whatever you put out comes back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a big believer in energy?
Yes.
What's your take on masculine energy versus feminine energy?
I'm not.
I don't dabble in that at all?
I don't dabble in that at all. Every time I read
which thing? Do you dabble in this?
No, that was one thing that came up in the human design yesterday too, about your masculine and feminine energy.
Yes,
and it was,
it's huge right now on social media.
Do we have more masculine energy?
We are
Is
masculine.
That why we are drawn to them? Okay.
I'm trying to work on my feminine energy now because I've heard that, anyways. But yeah.
In terms of energy, mine's more like energetics and body language and reading, tones, and I'm super sensitive to that stuff. So it gets me in trouble sometimes. I'm like, everything okay? Something wrong? And it's like, everything's fine, but I sense.
My husband
I'm
hates me
huge
for that
like
too.
that too. Yeah.
I find I'm very good at doing a very first glance at people and determining
the vibe,
their juju. Yeah. And I'll tell my husband no, just stay away from them. And then months later he's like, I should have listened to you. I'm like, I know. One interaction. That's all I need.
I think women inherently have that trait though, right? Our intuition and our gut is our gut instinct is very strong compared to men.
Well, and we use it. They may have it, but
they just overlook it.
They're not programmed the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I wanted to talk about masculine and feminine energy.
Well, I'm sure she can answer questions with it. So I have a question for females. So what unique challenges do us females face when we're dealing with or starting to grow our own businesses? Because I find we do have some things stacked against us that we have to kind of overcome.
I think female stereotypes and expectations. Imposter syndrome too, because, who do I think I am going out and trying to do this on my own?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. And I mean, some people probably do look at someone and go, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
I find for how my culture is, it was very taboo. What are you doing? This is not what women do. And
totally. Same with us. Yeah. Same with me. Yeah. And I think women in leadership roles are viewed as bossy or viewed as
bitches?
Yeah, pretty much. Whereas men in leadership roles are viewed as strong and ambitious. But for us, it's oh, you have an opinion and you're outspoken. Oh, this girl is, so out there.
In terms of women are able to lead with more empathy. And I think, as a solopreneur female and solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever, there's more opportunities for collaboration.
Yes, I agree.
And I was just saying that with a lot of the networking groups, I'm sure there's men ones out there. And I think, when you go to the Chambers of Commerce, which I've, been to the Burlington one, and there were more men there, but it was probably more industry type businesses. But I think there's a lot of opportunities for women, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they were all around before and I just didn't know about them because I was in the corporate world, but I don't think so. I think these networking groups are
I know
newer and growing.
I know, like, because like Juanita has done lots, and I know there was before COVID, there was a few like female based ones, but for some reason or another, they've all kind of died out. So since then, there hasn't been anything.
They're reemerging.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that they're reemerging and they may be doing things a little bit differently or better. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting avenue for us as women to be able to kind of connect and collaborate with people in a different way, which wasn't available before.
Yeah.
In that same stream, how can women leverage networking to break barriers in male-dominated industries?
Well, show up, number one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when you're saying that there's no more networking groups like left with women, and I'm like, I think it's harder for women to show up, or maybe
Well,
women just don't show up as much, right?
I think it probably depends on what industry you're in. You know, am I going to go with my coaching and tanning and feel confident walking into the Burlington Chamber of Commerce meeting? Probably not.
You absolutely should.
Yeah, I was going to say, why not?
But if I was a mortgage broker or a real estate agent, or I had a product, I'd probably be fine walking in there with that.
You know what's funny about that? I actually feel like less, even though I'm a very confident person, I feel less confident walking into these networking groups because I'm like, there's so many of me. As a mortgage broker, every third person is also a mortgage broker. And I'm like, it's overly saturated. So am I going to actually add value or get value out of these networking groups?
Well, I think, and I've got one woman that I've become friends with that I know that's in Waterdown. She was the one that tapped me on the shoulder when I was at Watermark, and I introduced her to the mediator. So although, yes, there are other mortgage brokers, if you started to network and had one-on-ones with people, you're going to be top of mind. So there may be a lot in there. And I've had real estate agents reach out to me to go for, to have a coffee, and I'm like, why? And then I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Amanda, like, first of all, they get to know you.
Yeah.
This didn't have anything to do with the question you asked about breaking into the male-dominated world. I mean, you just have to try,
Yeah.
and if there's, I mean, it's like with all the Facebook groups, and if we're talking more local networking and whatnot, you can always post something in a Facebook group about saying, it could be an anonymous post and just saying, I'm a female looking to go to this. I'm really uncomfortable. Like, does anybody have any advice? Or
Be vulnerable.
is anybody going? Maybe we could carpool together.
Yeah.
It's
share
no
ideas.
different than meeting a stranger for a
No, you're
coffee.
so right. You're so right.
I was just going to say, like, I think if women kind of collaborate or join forces a lot more instead of looking at each other as competitors, then I think we'd have an easier time breaking through these barriers because we're smarter.
I think women are like so threatened by each other.
Well,
yeah.
I know the groups
why.
I was going to a bit in Toronto. I didn't. It was an amazing group. I just didn't find the same female support here. It's like so different, and I even know that a few people that I was like, what do I need to get to know that person or have my mindset's completely changed. And
Yeah.
I think going into back to your question about what can women do in terms of the male dominated world. I mean, it's showing up. And
No,
showing
I
up
really agree with
consistently.
you. I think showing up is the biggest thing you can do because it's almost like men don't expect us to show up. You know what I mean? Not to trash men. I love men and I'm not trashing men,
jam.
but I think, say that again?
They're my jam.
Yeah, no, I love men, but it's also like in male dominated industry, in real estate, in the mortgage world, in financial industries, it is male dominated. And I think they almost don't expect us to show up.
I know
in a
for
way.
like my industry, I had to kind of show my knowledge and push back a little bit. It's like if I'm in negotiations with men, especially in my early years, they would try to like say, oh, well, this is like, especially if we're talking like building code or something. And then when I would push back, like, actually, no, that's not correct. And then they would kind of like, oh, she actually knows what she's talking about. Like they would try to always kind of pull one over on me. And luckily I had the knowledge of how things should be done and all of that. So they weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously being in a male dominated industry like I was for so many years, it was like, first of all, I had a sales and marketing title first. And when I was starting to get into more nitty gritties about stuff, it was like, who is she? And it was always she. Who is she to be commenting on this? She's just, this and that. So we got rid of the sales and marketing, which helped when I just had sort of the VP title.
Mm.
But it's like I didn't get credit for all that I knew and understood. And, I got to be at a whiz at redesigning and tweaking floor plans that the architects had put forward at first.
Yeah.
And coming up with solutions to things, not necessarily like the construction deep down dirty part of it, but I had a lot of knowledge, but I had to definitely prove myself, and I wasn't doing it maybe in the way I would do it now.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about your job now?
That I don't use an alarm clock.
Oh, fair enough.
Except
honestly,
the new puppy.
Yeah.
Sean used to get up sort of 7:30, or the first email I would hear go off then. Some mornings I think I'm even up before that to let her out. But anyway, not using an alarm clock. And being able to go to PYC yoga or Bound at noon to do a class and coffee with a girlfriend after, and then go back and pick up where I left off. The other part I really like is I do I do all my own content and like creative. I love doing that and my writing. And I sometimes say, if I come downstairs and I'm like, if I got paid for what I put out today, I'd be making really decent money. And like I said, I love doing it. And should I be spending that much time on it? No, because it's not reaping the rewards, but I
love it. And sometimes like for me, I love this podcast, and it's become like a passion project for me, at least. And I know for you as well, because like being in mortgages, it's like numbers all the time, but this is tapping into the creative part of my brain, and it's so refreshing, and I love it. And I can't wait to see like how we grow this, and just meeting new people like you, like every week. It's so refreshing, and it's so fun to hear about different industries, and sometimes you need a little bit of creativity in your life. Spice things up, right?
Absolutely.
So no, I totally get that you love that part. That's awesome.
That was a good question.
Thank you.
I spat out all of a sudden 3 things, but
that you probably don't even think about, right?
No, not unless I'm asked, I guess.
What's one piece of advice you wish you received earlier in your career?
That you can't change other people.
Yeah.
It's so simple. And you can't just overnight not do that. I mean, situation happens and you want someone to see things from your perspective or it to be done a different way. And I didn't realize that's what I was trying. I was trying to change situations in my family and in, work places. I didn't like how someone was behaving, and they weren't behaving in the best interests of the company, for example, or they weren't behaving as a great family member. And I just was like tenacious and didn't want to let it go and wanted it to change, to the point where, I walked away from parents and a sibling because I was like, I can't change this. It's turning me into like a messed up person.
That's crazy.
Are you naturally like very blunt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's me. I'm the blunt sister.
Yeah, I'm very blunt too.
Yeah.
I was the black sheep and the scapegoat.
Yeah.
So it was, I was the one that looked like the problem, but I was probably the problem born out of dysfunction that was already there.
Right.
Which makes sense.
And now you've removed yourself from that.
I have. And you know what? I bear no hostility or resentment or anger. It sucks. But to me, it was like I had to make that decision to get into a better place. And it was like a life saving, so to speak.
Yeah. And now you're flourishing, it seems like.
Yeah, the bank account's not quite there yet, but that's next.
That's okay. You're 3 feet from gold.
Yeah.
Is what I've learned today.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that little story too. And I remind myself. There's another little thing.
That's very reassuring. Like, I'm going to think about that every time that, like, a deal goes sideways or whatever. It's like, you're 3 feet from goal. Just keep going. Just keep swimming.
There's one other, not necessarily piece of advice, but something I do, and it's called joy stacking. So when you're feeling like giving up or like you're not where you want to be, and I mean, there's all these catchphrases now. You're exactly where you're meant to be right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to tell myself that a lot, but there's something I also do that I learned from a writing coach, Crystal, that I worked with a while ago, and I think she called it joy stacking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, from this moment, like you can either go back a week, you can go back 6 months, you can go back a year. And, you know, what accomplishments and what new things are in your life and what positive things. And I'm like, you know, a dog, a move. I've got, you know, 6 new girlfriends. I now go to networking events. And I've got a bunch of other like
Yeah.
little things that weren't there. And I'm like, look at all the stuff, like the podcasts I've been on. Like none of those things I'd done before.
Mm-hmm.
The additional connections with people, like I didn't have those 6 months ago. And I mean, it's taken time, but I have to go, where was I a year ago versus now? And, you know, I'm getting referrals. I've started connecting more than just one, you know, meeting and seeing faces we meet outside. You know, confidence has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to remind myself of all those things.
I love hearing stories like this because it just reaffirms my mindset that timelines don't exist. And I really like that because hearing your story and how you were in real estate development for so many years and you were in Midtown Toronto and then you changed careers and then you moved cities, you know, you moved an hour away into the suburbs.
I would have never done
I
any of
love
that
it.
stuff
It's just
before.
like timelines don't exist and people who are like, you have to do this by this age and you have to do this by this age.
Yeah. And to that point of like joy stacking, I find when I get into a good routine of doing like every morning, writing 5 things that I'm grateful for, and like also doing that at nighttime, you're a lot calmer. Because even if you have fluctuations throughout the day, or you may be like leaving off on an angry note, when you go back and reframe of like, hey, what are 5 things that happened in the last 24 hours that I'm grateful for? You have like a different appreciation and like your whole body and mind kind of just switches.
So true.
Yeah.
They say gratitude is like the best medicine for anxiety because it like grounds
It
you.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I find that I'm anxious, I go back to like my gratitude journal or I just like list, like you said, 5 things like in the top of my head, just like that I'm grateful for. And I think it really helps.
Yeah, I should do more journaling. I did a power up program with PYC Burley. It was like 30 days and it was 5-minute meditation, journaling prompts, and you've got to move every day, which I pretty much do anyway. But, and it that's just a reminder that I need to start doing that, like scheduling it and doing it, especially now with the weather
Yeah.
change. And I'm a real summer. It makes me
Same.
feel better.
Mhm.
And I just feel like things are
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you need to, yeah.
I'm trying and like ingrain it in my kids, which is hard.
How old are your kids?
5 and
They're
6.
so little still,
Yeah,
though.
Joel's fantastic at it. My daughter is like needs to get there. We're working it.
What is the most rewarding part of your job, would you say?
Seeing clients feel happier and lighter.
And like unstuck, I would say, right? Because I feel like a lot of people come to you probably when they're stuck or like
I
trying to make a
guess,
decision.
Well, you could say stuck or broke or
Yeah.
I mean, in the decisions, like I said, there's certain situations where I'm going to say it's beyond working with a coach's like ability. There's some, really difficult situations out there, but there's, a lot that I think just bringing awareness to the client of their role
Yeah.
in what's going on, which was one thing that when I started doing a bunch of podcasts and was talking, and I was like, it just started like light bulbing me of a way to sort of position it. Like we're always going, somebody else is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 or 3 or
It's
4
true.
people involved. And I mean, it sucks because the other person may have started it. So there may be yes, the chicken came before the egg, but and I wasn't using probably the best analogy. I'm going to come up
it made
with a better
sense.
one.
I understood it.
Yeah, it's just, it's seeing people's lives change, and people's lives can change, and you can reroute things and restructure things. You've just got to be willing to do the work.
Willing to do the
You're gonna
work.
have to do the work. The other person's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So when you're coaching somebody, what are like some things that they can expect that you may be like guiding them through, or like some scenarios that you like are pushing them to kind of take a look at?
It's all on a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So looking at behaviors and how the strategies somebody is currently using to deal with a certain situation, and it's putting a new strategy in place, and then based on that, having them journal, like, for example, every time that they've had to actually go in and use the new strategy versus the old way they would have handled it.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, there's a lot of work. There's homework.
Mm-hmm.
There's homework, me reading stuff and preparing stuff, and there's homework for clients making, the changes and replacing old habits with new habits, old strategies with new strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one thing that
Yeah.
just comes to mind off the bat. And there's, like I said, accountability. So it's not like it's a punishment if somebody doesn't do something, but, you got to show up. You have to give proper notice with,
Yeah.
canceling. You need to turn in your journal things, or, we come up with something that is a consequence, so to speak. There's a better word for it now that I've come up with, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
No, I like that about coaching, that you're actually keeping your clients accountable and that there's like goals and like something like tangible for them to like
There is
do
at
and
the
like
end
look
of the
forward
day.
to. Because every time I go to therapy, I'm like, okay, so I have this problem, but like, how do we fix it? They're like, oh, there's no way to fix it. Let's just talk about your feelings. And I'm like, that's fine and fair, but I'm very type A and I need to like work towards something, or I feel like I'm not doing
They don't give you
anything.
strategies?
Not really. Like we just like talk about things.
Well, and that's what I said. That's what I found personally. The difference was with me. It was like,
Yeah,
I'd go
and
in
that's-
talk.
yeah.
It got me through the difficult.
Like it's nice to like dump my trauma on them, but
You
I'm
guys need to go to you need to make sure your therapist is cognitive
CBT. I know. Yeah.
Because then they're actually trying to help you like do pattern interruptions and like different strategies. Like when you're feeling like this, try to do this. Does that work? No, like they're actually giving you tactile things to implement.
Yeah, and there's so many tools. Like I said, the quantum change process where you're releasing, anger, sorrow. I can't off the bat.
Yeah.
There's 5 of them. I should know them. Like those negative emotions. I mean, a quantum change process is something you can do a number of times. Sorry. No, that's quantum time release. So I got the two mixed up.
That's okay.
And limiting beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. That's something I can do, once with my clients, but they could do 3 or 4 months down the road. I mean, I'll be on the phone with some of my, friends who are coaches, and I'll be hitting some shit, for lack of a better word. And they're like, you need a QTR right now, Amanda. Like, do you have time to just stay on? And we can get distracted and sucked back into, I'm going to say, the negativity and the bad energy and whatnot. And once in a while, it's like, okay, why am I feeling like, no one's listening and I'm getting angry? So you can go back and do some of those things. And I mean, that may be like I said, limiting beliefs or negative emotions. And
I find especially like if you're trying to make a change in yourself and like your family or your network around your close knit people are not doing it,
some people will fall off.
Yeah. Or you're just like, oh, it's easier for you to fall back into like old patterns because they view you a certain way or whatever it is. So it's like you really got to kind of push past and keep going.
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, holiday time is, approaching.
A lot of people regress,
and it's really hard, especially like if you are going into it and you've started doing work and you're learning about saying no and boundary setting and things like that. And to walk in and them to think that you're the same person you were, but you're not. I mean, you got to really hold your own.
Yeah.
And, that's something else that it helps to have, I do one-on-one stuff. There's some Voxer stuff I do with, the coaching clients where there's a quick reach out when they're, struggling with something. But yeah, it's other people. Like if I were to walk back in and run into a bunch of the people that I spent all those years with in the industry, they don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah, and they're going to
automatically look at me and go, "Oh, there's that bitch."
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, sorry, it's Babe now.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I didn't know I could be that funny.
Okay, where can people find you? What type of clients do you take on? Is there any type of client that you wouldn't take on?
You can find me on social media at Amanda Kirkland Coach.
Amazing.
On Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
My website's amandakirkland.com. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You can Google me. I think I show up there. There's links to the tanning stuff, and anyone's interested in my
Love that
tanning too.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of coaching if you want.
Oh,
with
nice.
that, if you're going through a struggle.
Oh my God, coaching while you're getting tanned?
I love
That's
this.
amazing.
That's one of the things I want to do. Like, be able to, like, if I've got a client and they're struggling with something, it's going to be, I'll sit down for another,
Yeah.
little bit of time and what's going on, and maybe
Talk about it.
yeah, and
Mhm.
not, charging you. It's just, I'm an added
Mhm.
Benefit. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of working with me, like I said, I do a 30-minute free, no obligation consultation call, which pretty much everybody does these days.
Mhm.
And then we go from there. But, I will be doing some more workshops in the new year.
I was going to say, do you do workshops?
And I'm just starting to plan those out.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I'd be open to going to
We'll go
those.
together.
Mhm.
They'll start off being Zoom ones.
Okay, amazing.
But I think I want to get an idea of like what people want covered versus just what I think people want covered. So I may, send some questionnaires out to like some of the women at the networking groups we're at. And then from there, the one-on-one, I typically do a 6 to 8 week breakthrough, which is about 2 hours a week.
Okay.
And it's very like each week it's planned out. It's not we hop on the phone and how was your week? Like,
Okay,
there's
amazing.
an agenda.
It's like a boot camp.
It
Yeah.
is a bit
And
of
I
a
like
camp.
that there's a predetermined length of time, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you earlier, is how long do you typically spend with your clients? But then I thought you probably don't have an answer for that, but it's all thought
6
out.
to
That's
8.
amazing.
Like it's like I charge it based on 6, but if I think we need another
2 weeks.
to get through it. And then I do, the one-on-one, but the one-on-one has to be structured. Like, we've got to structure it because, like I said, it's not sitting down and shooting the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm going to be I'm going to be just as guilty about being, as you can see. Like, I could probably go down a road and not stay on the path.
Yeah.
Because you want to like, oh yeah, I get it. And
So it's structured. Okay, that's really
It
good
is
to know.
structured.
And 6 weeks is a pretty fast time. Like, that's really fast.
Yeah.
For a breakthrough to happen. So that's really interesting.
well, it's intense. I mean, and
Wow.
it's meant to be.
Oh my
Very
God. Very interesting.
Look at
I'm
my
like,
stuff
do we
on my
need one,
website.
Natalie?
Thank you for joining us. I think we learned a lot. I was like,
Sorry.
that's okay. No, I was really interested to see like where we were going to go with this. And I really liked kind
The
of
path
where
it
you took
took.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for reaching out. We'll put all of Amanda's information in our show notes below, and have a great day.